Hi, John. Is going to get people a few minutes to connect. Hey, David.
Hello there.
Just giving people a couple of minutes to join.
Mhm.
Hey,
Hey,
Steve. Long time.
been a
Right.
couple weeks.
So, yeah, while I'm waiting on folks to join, just a couple of updates. So the attestation SIG yesterday took one last look at the verifier pattern, and there were no more comments. I still think the diagram in there may need another look, but I basically told them I'm giving you guys a couple of days grace just, to look asynchronously on at the document, may see if you have additional comments. The TAC meets next Thursday, so not tomorrow. And verify pattern, confidential governance, and confidential payload upgrades. I would like them to basically approve all three.
I passed it around our product managers and our attestation verification team, so I don't have any additional comments.
Good. So this means we also have the expectations for ecosystem participants, which is now in the approved folder. Now I put all patterns into one folder in a Google Drive. So you'll see a patterns folder. Under there's patterns language, draft patterns, and approved patterns. Expectations of ecosystem participants, while it's listed in the approved patterns folder, there's still a whole bunch of comments on there. So I'm not going to call it approved until we clean it up, and as we create more governance patterns, we'll be putting more stuff in there. But the approved patterns also refer to it. So yeah, it's technically not okay to have a completed document refer to an incomplete one, but maybe we can skirt that one for now. So the next pattern that we need to work out is going to be the break and inspect governance pattern. So this is what I would like to work on today. And again, I emailed the list with some thoughts on that. I just hoped that Grok would write me something, and it did. How much I like it, but it's a starting point. So this is what I would like to work on today. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share the document. Let me just move my, and I was literally working on it this morning before the meeting, so you'll see it's still very much work in progress. Right, please confirm that you can see my screen. And I'm going to put this document link in the chat. You can open for yourself. If you have any issues accessing it, then let me know. And as usual, I will grant access expediently. All right. So I would like to go a little bit over the comments. So there is a lot of similarity that's going to happen between this and the verifier, because we're also listing roles and assets. This is not the same as with payload governance, because payload governance doesn't have that many different roles with their responsibilities. But these are services. Break and inspect is a service, verifier is a service. It's potentially a multi-tenant service. And as a result, we are more likely to see roles in this. I just started writing them out in similarly to the way the verifier is written. So copied and pasted a bunch of stuff. And let's see. So far it is short. And I really think we need to find somebody who has experience, real world experience managing these gateways. And to see if there's anything we have missed. I certainly have a whole bunch of questions. But the first one is, now, while I called it break and inspect, there is more to gateway than break and inspect. So it may insert headers. It may redact, right? So
Yeah, this one I suspect will have a lot of requirements and impact on us.
Yeah, and also with like even just the name. So break and inspect is one name. Maybe it's really what it does is traffic inspection and modification, really, right? Maybe so the name may need to change, and I'm just like basically any thought I have, I just put it in the document so we can address it. But this is kind of an open question right now. What are we gonna do, call these things? The second thing is these gateways may be deployed in series. So you may have a TLS terminator followed by a web application firewall, followed by something else. Maybe like a data leakage prevention, whatever that thing may do. And sometimes they are not one, but several services deployed in series. This is again, I'm going to ask around at work as well. I want to understand, typical deployment patterns or what the variety of these things is, so we can best reflect it here. So, but I already started saying that one or more of these gateways may exist between a client and a server, right? So we need to make sure that we don't break the expectation of confidentiality. And later, maybe that's another comment. I think there is also expectation of integrity, which again, if you modify the traffic, there is going to be a break in the expectation of integrity.
The question for me is, you can obviously add anything you want into a confidential environment, including, your various API gateways and tools that you might put in there, but you're putting them all in the circle of trust. And as you put them in the circle of trust and they can modify the behavior, what exposure does that open you up to, and how do you manage it and control it? Have you just broken down all the guarantees that you were expecting, or is there a way to do that in a measured way?
Yeah, and this is where I say you cannot do break and inspect without including these gateways into the trust relationship.
That's right.
Right? And also up here, I make another comment. Again, feel free to disagree with anything I'm saying. I'm just sort of phrasing it for your awareness. The idea is when it comes to lawful intercept, which to me means something that, while legal, I want to talk about, hacking, right? Where it's unlawful intercept because you found some flaw that's not. But lawful intercept is like, I'll give you an example. So Signal has seen an investment in potential board membership from the CIA, right? So that casts the shadow on the secret, on the security properties of the Signal service. Like, why is Signal's intelligence or an intelligence service involved in something that's saying it's a secret messaging app. So there may be some lawful intercept going in Signal, but I'm specifically leaving it outside the scope because this is clandestine in some way. And the idea of confidential computing is everything is done in the open. You can examine the code, you can examine the configuration, you can decide based on that whether you want to place trust in something. And you basically, if you're going to say, okay, here's a backdoor, I agree to it. Okay, that brings everything in scope. But what we normally understand as lawful intercept, as in participants don't know about it, but yet it's happening, leaving that out of scope. So I started adding roles and assets. This is incomplete. There is more stuff to do. I just basically ran out of time and then the meeting started. So, but this largely parallels what is done in the verifier space. And it will be a little different, but largely similar. Again, asking questions around maybe we should combine software and configuration into one, because basically they get tested together. The configuration, maybe, are you running in debug mode? Right, code's great, but it's running in debug mode, so wide open to inspection. And that would be something that attestation should preclude. And then similarly, in the verifier, you basically check values against policies, and there isn't really additional software. But on the break and inspect gateway, because it may involve things in the tenant, that is a plugin from the services perspective. There is some additional software here. So again, there'll be some differences. You're not going to see verifier software on the tenant. At least we haven't seen those cases. But secrets and policies, etc., they're assets. Now, again, incomplete list will be completed, and also a different list from what Grok has suggested, because I think that one was far too expansive.
Well, I think we're going to end up with a fairly expansive. I think we'll go wide at first, and then we'll end up having to throw things out as we focus on what's the relationship between confidential compute, trust, and break and inspect. Because we're not going to try to manage break and inspect. That's a whole separate process doing its own thing. But so what we do need to manage is how do we manage the trust with that involved, and what is the connection points between the two that we have to worry about?
Yeah.
So I think to make sure we've caught them all, we have to go fairly broad on break and inspect, but we'll bring it down to what really matters when we're all done.
Fair enough. And again, feel free to go take a pen to this document and throw more stuff in there.
Yep.
Right. But I was conservative in what I'm including. So, I'm basically putting secrets, encryption, signing all in one bucket. All right. And we can choose to separate them. But let's, I think for our own sanity and ease of management, there's some sort of balance to be struck. between the two. Okay, so this basically repeats the fact that if you're going to decrypt the data between the client and the server, then there are threats of exposure to vulnerabilities, unauthorized access, information leakage, whatever. Right? So there is a, I don't know, I call it layer of trust, but like maybe instead of, I should say, another participant in the trust relationship. Just gonna put this in here. So, yeah, I'm just throwing comments in there so people can, add their own comments and respond to whatever thoughts I had in the moment. Right. So we're basically saying the inspection device itself might be secured through the gateway device. I mean here, right? So
Yeah, it must be secured. We'll have to define what that means. Does it need to be in its own TEE? Is it a different level of security? That's I don't know yet.
right. And again, we can cast a wide net for a wide variety of scenarios and explain what they might be. Now, I
Yep.
can't imagine that if it's a multi-tenant service and it services Coke and Pepsi, that it's going to all run out of the same tea. I just can't imagine. Right. So, but if you feel it's worth including, then okay. So we're talking about basically there are security and trust concerns, then there are regulatory and compliance concerns. So even if you say, oh, continuous computing and break and inspect are antithetical to each other, well, too bad. Reality intervenes, and regulators will say, no, you need to be able to, inspect your payments traffic and perhaps report on it, whatever. It's not something that's optional in the real world. And reverse
Yeah.
proxies
And
are,
if you've got break and inspect sitting outside the TEE, but it's inside the network traffic, you haven't violated the properties you get of in-memory protection. You've just broken the boundary at the communication layer to it.
yeah.
And um, we will just have to think about that in terms of what does that mean to the code that's running inside the TEE.
Yeah. So I think I'm going with the assumption, and the assumption may be incorrect, that traffic that goes in, and by the way, this is reflected in the payload governance pattern. All traffic that enters a T is also encrypted in transit between the T and whoever's sending it to and from. Now, the reality of enterprise computing is such that, today at least, TLS is terminated when it enters the domain of trust of the enterprise, and
That's right.
there often travels in the plain text between that and then whatever is doing computation. Well, confidential computing may not enjoy that very much, right? So we may need to do things to secure traffic between the gateway and the compute. And
Yeah.
that's something that I want to discuss with people with operational experience to see just how much of an additional burden it is. Uh, and maybe it's not TLS, maybe it's IPsec, and then we need to figure something out there. But um, you know,
The other thing we're going to need to do with this one is get somebody from the attested TLS working group to weigh in on this because it's going to have a far bigger impact on that.
mhm. Yeah. So again, we can take this to the attestation SIG. I hope that's what you mean, or is there another group?
I don't know if it's another group or it's being worked on in the attestation SIG. I don't personally attend that one.
Mm.
Um, but
Well,
I
it
know,
could be IETF. I do not know if it's RATLS is an IETF effort or it's in a consortium effort. Maybe need to look into that.
yeah, I thought it
But yes,
started as a triple C effort. It may have turned into an ITF one.
okay. Let's double check. We can. I will make a note to ask. I'll just add a comment here. Okay. So cool. Hi, welcome. I haven't seen you in these meetings before. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, so I'm interested in the confidential compute forums, and I work on security firmware. So
Okay.
yeah, joined it.
Well,
Michael,
welcome.
Thank you.
Today we're looking specifically at the topic of break and inspect gateways, reverse proxies, etc. So what happens to traffic between client and server if it needs if the data in transit encryption needs to be intercepted at an intermediary, and essentially the impacts of that to governance requirements. So it may not be very closely related to what Micron is doing, but you're welcome to listen in and participate if you have any knowledge in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Regulatory and compliance, that's basically, like it or not, you'll be forced into doing it. And then the balancing of security and privacy. So we talk about, there may be limits to how much the gateway can do based on some sort of predefined criteria. And this is where we're basically saying that some of the traffic may be encrypted direct from client to server in a way that there is no way for the break and inspect gateway. So over and above, effectively application level protection of some traffic, because we understand that the transport level encryption may be broken at an intermediary. So this is where we note that the balancing of security and privacy and how this may get handled. Nikolai is not here today, and he basically said, no, we need examples, and I said we need to brainstorm, and then he said he suggested some ideas. So I just want to, where did he suggest them? I don't know. Well, we'll look below where there was. Okay, so the solution, and again, I don't think it's a complete solution yet. We need to probably expand on this section a lot more. But this was my proposal, that we have a full and partial models. Again, this is totally out of, like a brain dump, may not, in fact, be in the final version, may be a bad idea, who knows? And again, I would like to talk to practitioners in the space. And again, Steve, if you know folks who have experience managing such things in the real world today, would be really good to talk to them.
Yeah, I know a bunch of folks over at Zscaler,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously that's a whole part of their product line.
Yeah. Okay. So, maybe you can ping some of your contacts and see if, they're willing to chime in and talk to us.
Yep.
Maybe even join the working group, because they'll be impacted by confidential computing one way or another.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm basically saying the full mode, sender fully trusts the intermediary, expects all traffic to be visible, potentially modifiable, and the partial is the portion of the traffic is encrypted end-to-end between the participants, and the other portion is subject to BNI processes. Again, I just mentioned, and perhaps I'll add a comment. Is it? I So Nikolai said the operator plays one or the other pattern at discretion guided by proper policies, regulations, and contracts. I would accept that change. I think he's correct. The only thing now, for ease of readability, I'm just gonna. Okay. All right. And I'm just reading, reminding myself what this says. Yeah, so this question is also worth answering. So is BNI completely transparent? Or is there a way to indicate that like what modifications have been made? And again, it's a question to practitioners, and I don't want to be guessing. And certainly, as we work on this whole trustworthy workload identity, and I will in fact change this. It would be a very important part of this document. Now we can leave it out of scope and create a separate document later. But as you look at trustworthy workload identity, the intermediary actually throws a monkey wrench into it. Because instead of the client attesting the server and knowing I'm talking to such and such workload because of the attestation of the server, you're really attesting the gateway because that's the next hop. And so if I have A and B, Alice and Bob talking, and then I have my gateway grant, whatever call them, then grant pretends to be Bob to Alice, and grant pretends to be Alice to Bob. And I don't know, it may become more complicated than this simple statement, and we need to think through what this means. And then if these things are sequential, then maybe there's G1, G2, G3. Ultimately, when it comes to Bob still needs to understand that it was request that came from Alice. And maybe there's some additional information about G1, G2, G3 having been had their fingers in the pie. But again, how is that reflected in the traffic, in the identity? Is there is there a form of delegation? I mean, all of these things, there are many, many questions to which I do not have answers at the moment. So anyway, at this point, I'm simply presenting to you the current state of it. It is early days. So now I don't have anything else to add. We don't need to take up the whole hour, but I want to hear your feedback and next steps.
Well, as I said earlier, I think we're going to throw a whole bunch of things at the wall for a bit, and then we'll start trying to sort through it and nail it down to what the heck does it mean. So I just want to thank you for the great start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so immediately what we can do is we can start populating our assets. And I don't know if there are more roles than what I just listed, but certainly we can start populating our assets table. We can then start working out the expectations of the assets versus the roles. We need to find, again, review. Where are his suggestions? He said added, suggested some ideas. Oh, maybe it's these. Maybe these are his suggestions: protocol origin, destination, frequency, and transmission. Maybe that's what he said, but I don't see a suggested change. Okay, so I have to respond to Nikolai here. Okay, so next steps, I suppose, would be to add more assets, the relationships with roles, think about more scenarios, do a little bit more research on what BNI does, find experts in the field to help us sort through this, and then separately decide on if workload identity is going to be part of this document, or is it simply a matter of defining a workload identity through gateways as part of the other working group. I don't have anything else today. This is all I got.
I think we'll call it early today then.
All right. Okay, if I hear no other comments, so again, the approved governance patterns, payload governance, payload upgrade governance, and verify governance are all going to the TAC for approval next Thursday. So if you are interested in one last look, please do. And again, just because it's approved doesn't mean we couldn't take an issue, but I'm going to then ask tax guidance on how to make these, official consortium documents. Maybe they go on different letterheads, maybe they get reformatted in a certain way. Maybe they need to be, saved as PDF and published that way. I don't know yet. I'll talk to Dan about that. But, this, we've done some pretty good work that is kind of like from someone in the governance space. I can tell it's pretty revolutionary in the industry to have such detailed guidance. So we're actually going to be setting some examples for how similar things are done. So that's all good work. And then I thank you for your time, and then I will see you in a couple of weeks' time. And please continue authoring content here so that we have a lot more to discuss next time we meet.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye.
All right.
You
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Oh, I think you said see you.
Oh, okay. Take care.